This program is brought to you by Grand Valley State University.
Well, I guess we can go ahead and get started since it's 7 o'clock. Good evening, I'm Brian Flanagan, and as you can see, I'm working double duty tonight. I'm Associate Director of the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies here at Grand Valley State University, and I'm Ella's dad. All week this week, I've been trying to figure out what to do with Ella when it's my turn up at the podium. My wife's out of town, so responsible dad tonight, and I've been trying to figure out what to do. And finally, Gleaves this afternoon, Gleaves Whitney, the director of the Hauenstein Center, said, "We're talking about Michigan's future. Ella's it." Which, of course, he's exactly right. So by joining me on stage today, Ella's making an important distinction, and I hope that so far that's all she's making. The distinction between short and long-term thinking. To paraphrase the late John Gardner, people are unwilling to defer short-term goals and instant gratification unless they can collectively envisage long-term goals of consequence. We must be able to visualize a better future and a path towards achievement. We know that in Michigan today, we are in desperate need of long-term thinking and renewal in time for Ella's productive years, if not our own. The upcoming 2010 watershed election is our opportunity to begin setting some parameters for that renewal. That's why the Hauenstein Center is proud to host 3 community conversations with the Center for Michigan and its Michigan's Defining Moment campaign. Thousands of Michigan voices have been heard already through this exciting initiative, and tonight is your chance to be heard and to start setting some parameters for this renewal. With us this evening from Public Sector Consultants is Mike Holliday. Mike has a PhD from Michigan State University, and his career has taken him from the academy to public relations and advertising to think tank consulting, where he specializes in surveys and group discussions. At this time, I would like to welcome Mike to the podium to lead our conversation and to tell us more about the Center for Michigan, truly one of the state's premier think and do tanks. While we go through this conversation, keep this one in mind. Should probably keep in mind the issues here with sounds, not smells. But Mike, welcome to Grand Valley.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ella. Thank you, folks, for coming in this evening. And a special thank you to the Hauenstein Center. Boy, have you folks been supportive of the Center for Michigan and Michigan's Defining Moment campaign, and we really appreciate that. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Grand Valley State University as well, which has also been wonderfully supportive of this entire campaign right from the beginning. It's been going on for a couple of years now, and I know we've done dozens of events on campus in one location or another, so it's really a pleasure to be back. For an old academic like me, it's always fun to be back on a college campus, and it's great to be here this evening with you. Let me start by showing you a short videotape that will give you a little bit of the thinking and a little bit of the idea behind the campaign that the Center for Michigan is conducting called Michigan's Defining Moment. Bear with me for just a second here. I need to cue this up. Well, I hope you caught the theme of transitions that runs through that short videotape. And transitions in a couple of different senses. One is that we are in a state of transition. That is, the state of Michigan is in a state of transition between where we were and where we need to get to. And the other is the sense that our state government is also very much going to be going through a state of transition. You heard Bill Rustum there talking about how the campaign, the Michigan's Defining Moment campaign, is about the year 2010, the election year coming up, because so many of our state officers are going to change in 2010 because of term limits. So against that backdrop, let me call your attention to these ideas about what we are trying to do today. We have the conviction that, transition or no, we all still own the state's future. It doesn't belong to the folks in Lansing, it doesn't belong to the industrialists, it doesn't belong to the unions, it doesn't belong to the political parties, it belongs to all the folks who live in the state. Folks just like us gathered here this evening. So that it's important for us to talk about what we decide is a common ground agenda that will drive the state's future forward. That's what we're here to do this evening, is to try to build some consensus around a common ground agenda, building on comments that have been made by many other groups like this one before. And I'm going to give you a synopsis of those comments and ask you to choose among them which ones you think, which of the priorities, which of the strategies that have been identified before you think are most important for us to pursue. Before we get into the meat of that discussion, though, let's go around the room and have you introduce yourselves, if you would, please. And I think this evening we've got time for you to make a comment as well, if you would like to do that. What's the one thing you would most like to see happen in Michigan's future? If something jumps right to mind, that'd be great. If you'd like to think about it for just a second, maybe we can come back to you. But let's just go, well, let's see here. Maybe the easiest thing to do would be to catch you folks over here on the left, and then I'll kind of go through the center, and then we'll catch you over here on the right. That's my right, my left. Yes, how about you gentlemen?
I'm Justin. I don't know to see about Michigan's future, maybe some more jobs, I guess.
You know what? That comes up in every group. Thank you, Justin. You brought it up right off the bat. Got to have something for Ella to do in a few years, right? Yes, sir.
My name is also Justin. I'd like to see Michigan's future grow a little bit toward the arts, a little bit more. We're really saturated for designers in this area, and I think we got more potential providing products.
Go movie industry, yes. Yes? Do away with term limits. That comes up in every group too. Yes. We'll start in the back and come forward.
Matthew.
Matthew?
I'd like to see recent jobs.
You'd like to see jobs as well. Okay, good. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Okay, jobs. Yes. Yes, sir. You joined us the other evening. Thanks for coming back. Yes. Yes.
Name's Fred. Yes, I'm coming back a second time. I appreciate the personal experience. Looking forward to this.
Okay, good. Thanks for coming. Yes, sir.
My name is Nick, and I'd like to see the vibrant cities around Michigan come together.
Vibrant cities. Good. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Paige.
Oh, sorry.
And,
That's all right. Go ahead. You're doing fine.
my name is Paige, and I'd like to see like our roadways get better. I've seen recently how they're working on the roadways, but I'd like for all of them to I guess increase productivity kind of, not as in potholes and everything.
Okay. More, better, and more productive roads, right? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Linda, and I guess I'd like to see more jobs for our youngsters.
Is that me? Oh, this is that bad spot, isn't it, Mandy? Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Linda and?
Hey, second time here.
Yes, you were here earlier too. Thanks
Yes,
for coming.
I would just ditto with you, and they said over there about jobs.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Good.
go
Thank
along
you.
with the roads too.
Yeah. Jobs and
Lots
roads.
of jobs.
They go together, don't they? Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christina, and I'd like to see an increase in jobs.
We have a certain theme going here this evening. All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name's Al, and I'm concerned about the term limits, and also I'd like to see a little bit of improvement in the political victory that we have in Lansing. It's getting to the point of being ridiculous.
All right. Good. Yeah, that comes up in all our groups too. Thanks for mentioning it. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jackie, and I would like to see economic stability and job opportunities.
Okay. Good. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Pat, and I'd like to see a greater focus and respect on our natural beauty in the state.
All right. Focus and respect on the natural beauty, the natural resources, and so on. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Judy, and I'd like to see a stronger manufacturing base.
Stronger manufacturing base. All right. Yes, sir.
My name is Hal, and I'd like to see us revisit the ballot initiative and how the funding the state constitution and how ballot initiatives are affecting funding within the state.
Okay. Seems to me you've been at one or two of these too. Yes. Thanks for coming back. Yes. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim, and I'd like to see better control of government expenses.
Better control of government expenses. All right, sir. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see, my name is Joyce, and I would like to see less bickering in our state legislature and more respect for each other and concern about the state rather than being reelected.
All right. Yes. Good. Thank you. Sir, can we catch you and then we'll work our way back up this side? Yes.
My name is John Jerry. As a short-term goal, I would like to see
the gasoline tax raised significantly, and using the money to fix the roads and the infrastructure. I think we can't do it without having the federal government. People are so averse to taxes that it's a hard thing, but that's what I'd like to see happen.
All right, nevertheless, yes, better roads would come from higher gasoline taxes. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Alyssa, and I'd like to see more jobs so that people are going to be in the city.
All right, people, young folks like yourself, I'm sure you're thinking, yes, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Megan, I'd like to see
Improvement in the economy, certainly. Yes, sir.
My name's Don Freeman. Short term, I'd like to see us adopt, as Dylan, an idea of thinking various government entities have a common insurance policy for their employees, save money, and the next thing I'd like to see happen is a legislature that looks as a whole state instead of just protecting and advancing the interests of the eastern half versus the western half of the state.
We're a fragmented state in many ways, yes. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You're all on, and I'd like to see civility come back in the fold.
Okay. Someone has said civility went south when Milliken went north, right? How about you folks in the back? We have some staffers from the Hauenstein Center, but I'd like to have them introduce themselves too, so you folks know who they are. Mandy?
Mandy, and that's Mayor from the Hauenstein Center. My name is Laura, and I wanted to go along with the jobs, increasing jobs.
Sure, you got Laura. Jobs.
I'm Betsy, and I would like to see more responsible spending and emphasis on schools.
I couldn't catch that last.
Education.
Ah, okay, good, thanks. Yes.
My name is Kaylee, and I agree with Betsy. I think there should be a higher focus on getting more children or more young adults into schools, colleges.
Okay, good, thank you.
Brian, I'd like to see stronger communities and thriving cities and better economy for this one.
Yep, Brian's got Ella in mind. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm here at the Leadership Academy, and so stronger communities, yeah.
Stronger communities. Okay, good. Thanks, Sandra. And Gleaves?
Yes, Williams Whitney, Director of the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies. I just want to see stronger leadership in the state. Knows how to get something done.
All right, good. Thank you all. Now we have some entertainment for you. It's an opportunity for you to try out that little clicker device that we've given you. We call it the Michigan game. You'll notice that the color scheme here suggests a certain one of our state universities, not the one that I'm particularly associated with. There was a little discussion about this. We said, wait a minute, we could call this the Michigan State game and change the color scheme, and they said, no, no, no. But they're in Ann Arbor. What are you going to do? Here's your first question. Hope my system is working here. Yeah, there we go. What I would like you to do is vote using your little clicker device for alternative 1, 2, or 3. The question is, we lost something like 750,000 jobs in this past decade, but we did gain a few, particularly so-called new economy jobs, high-tech jobs. So the question for you is, how many do you think we gained between 2000 and 2008? If you think it's 5,000, press number 1. If you think it's 15,000, press number 2. And if you think it's 57,000, press number 3. And in a moment, I'll show you how you voted, and I'll show you what the correct answer is. If you've got really good eyesight, you can see up at the top there, it's recording the responses. Mandy, did you get a count? Do you know how many folks we have? Should be about 20, 21. I see 20. Okay, then there are 23 of the clickers being used. A couple of these clickers seem to have slightly sticky buttons. You'll know that you voted correctly if you see the little green LED light up on the front of it there when you press the button. It won't register your vote twice, so there's no harm in pushing the button twice. Okay, we've got 22 here, and Mandy's passing out the last couple, it looks like, so maybe we'll get a couple more votes here. Well, we'll move on. They can vote in the next round. I'll show you how you voted. 59%, slightly more than half of you said it's 15,000. Nobody said it was 5,000, and 41% said it's 57,000, and the 41% are correct. We did pick up 57,000 jobs over that period of time. Well, here's another question. Good question to ask on a campus like this. How interested are Michigan residents in higher education and other forms of advanced training? Are we seeing people flocking to the campuses? Are we seeing flat enrollment? Or are we seeing most of our workers feeling that high school is good enough, no need for advanced education? 1, 2, or 3? Yeah. We're getting feedback from Ella. 23 votes. I think that's how many we've got out now. All right, 78%, more than 3/4 say that we're very interested, and a smattering of answers in the other columns, and the majority is quite right. We are seeing our students flocking to campuses. It does not come without a price, however. Our students take out a lot of student loans, and we're asking you in this question, how much in student loans do our students take out just at the 15 public universities like Grand Valley State University? Not the really expensive ones like Calvin, Aquinas, Hope, Kalamazoo College, and so forth. So is it 50 million, 100 million, or 1.2 billion in a year? You're fast on the clickers. There we go, 24, all 24. Interesting, somewhat split vote. About a sixth are saying 50 million, a little over a third are saying 100 million, and exactly half say 1.2 billion. And again, that is the correct answer, the 1.2 staggering billion dollars. We've taken some hits in this state. We all know that. So how do we rank on quality of life measures? Specifically home ownership, recreational opportunity, and philanthropy. There are people who sit around and measure these things objectively using scales that have been developed so that we can compare one state against another. So do we rank near the top nationally among the states? Do we rank in the middle of the pack, or do we rank near the bottom in quality of life? And maybe one sticky button this time. Let's move on so we don't spend, there it is. Let's see what you said. Split vote, a little slightly less than half said 46%, or said very high near the top, and then the others are about evenly divided between the middle and the bottom. But in fact, again, the largest group here, the plurality is correct. We still do rank very high near the top nationally. Historically, we've always ranked high in home ownership. Of course, recreational opportunity abounds in this state, and it is one of the most philanthropic states of the 50, perhaps only the second to Utah. Well, here's a crystal ball question. The state budget is $44 billion, more or less. How large is the projected deficit expected to be in the year 2017, which when we put this slide together was 10 years out into the future? Not that people walk around thinking about what the deficit is going to be in 10 years, but if you've got an inkling, give us an answer here. 1, 2, or 3, 50 million, 500 million, or 10 billion? Technically, of course, it has to be zero. We have to balance the budget, but this is the so-called structural deficit, the gap between anticipated revenues and anticipated expenditures that somehow has to be negotiated away. Our answers are in. We have a lot of pessimists in the room this evening, and a lot of pessimists are correct. They are expecting a $71 billion deficit for the year 2017. Well, what can we gather from this little bit of entertainment? We still do have a truly distinctive quality of life in Michigan, despite the things that have happened here. But it is no secret to anybody in this room or anywhere else, I think, in the state that transformation is upon us. We are transitioning from the economy that drove us during the 20th century, or the vast majority of the 20th century, which of course was manufacturing, and more specifically manufacturing cars and car parts, to something else, and we don't know what that something else is going to be. We think at the Center for Michigan, we think that this argues in particular the need for excellent leadership, the best quality leadership we can possibly get, because we're going to need people who understand how to make the complicated trade-offs that need to be made in an atmosphere where we are probably not going to have everything that we want the way we have been accustomed to having it during the 20th century. Let's review very quickly what's been going on in these conversations over the last 18 months or so. And this slide, by the way, is really old news. We've had far more than 180 conversations. It's up around 500 now. and far more than 1,800 people have taken part. We're closing in on 10,000, as a matter of fact. So we've had a lot of these conversations around the state in the last 18 months or so, and people have already told us much about their priorities for the state. I'm going to summarize that for you very quickly. You've also got this information there in your Blue Lighthouse book, so if you want to follow along, that's fine. I just want to run through real quickly what has emerged, what's bubbled up from the open-ended conversations that we've had over the last 18 months or so. Essentially, it's this. People have told us that three main goals are more important than anything else. And the first one is this one that you see at the top of the screen. We want to have a talented and globally competitive workforce in Michigan. Two strategies have been proposed as ways to accomplish that. And they both focus on education. It's a question of whether you're in the school of thought that says we need to focus on traditional education, the pre-K through grade 16 education, in other words, pre-kindergarten through a college degree, or should we focus on what we're calling lifelong learning? We've got an awful lot of people, unfortunately, who find themselves in midlife. They've been through their traditional education. They now have lost their jobs because the factory that they worked in has closed, and they don't have the skills they need to compete in today's marketplace, today's workforce. They need non-traditional education or lifelong learning, the kind of thing that our community colleges are good at providing. Either way, the argument is education will help build a talented and globally competitive workforce. Just a question here of where we put the emphasis. The second major theme that's emerged from these conversations is that we want to have a vibrant economy and great quality of life in Michigan. How might we accomplish that? These are the four strategies that have been proposed over the last 18 months or so. One is to focus on diversifying. If we can diversify away from the automobile industry, use the manufacturing base that we have, but diversify away from manufacturing specifically key to the automobile industry, we can capitalize on that skill that you heard Mark Murray talking about in the film. If there's one thing we know how to do well in Michigan, it's build things. That idea. We can build things in this state. We don't necessarily have to build cars. We could build something else. It's a question of what. So innovation, technology, and research may lead the way towards deciding what it is we should be building instead of cars. A second strategy that's been proposed here to create a vibrant economy and great quality of life is what we're calling entrepreneurialism. We don't know what the next big thing is going to be, economically speaking, in Michigan, but perhaps there's somebody out there who does. If that person is living in Michigan, we want them to stay here. We want them to use their creativity here to create a new industry that will help us become more economically viable going forward. If they're not living in Michigan, we'd love to attract them here. So that, again, we can take advantage of the talent and creativity that they would bring with them. But we need to make this an entrepreneur-friendly state if we're going to do either of those two things. That's what this strategy says. A third possibility is we're calling quality of place. It's maybe not the best description in the world, but it says basically let's capitalize on what we have. We know we have a lot of things that are very attractive. One of them is water. We have something like 1/6 of the world's fresh water. That's not chopped liver, as they say. That's an important commodity that we can use. We've also got tremendous recreational opportunities. It's a beautiful state. We've also got wonderful, vibrant cities, particularly if we were to fix them up a bit. So this strategy says, let's capitalize on what we have, let's fix it up, clean it up, make it as attractive as possible, and use that to try to attract new people into the state and bring their businesses with them. And the fourth strategy that's been proposed along these lines for economic development is a kind of marketing approach. We know that when we talk to people who do not live in Michigan, they think of either one or both of two things. And you know what those are when they think of Michigan? I bet you can guess. Cars is one of them. They think of Michigan as the automobile state. And the other thing they think of is the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit. Now, those of us who do not work in the automobile industry or do not live in Detroit know that Michigan doesn't boil down to Detroit and cars. There's lots more to it than that. But many people outside don't understand that. This approach says, let's give Michigan a new image. Let's play it off of the two attractive parts of the country, the coasts. Let's call it the North Coast, so that we kind of pick up on the imagery of the East Coast and the West Coast, which have a certain cachet about them. Maybe there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors about this, I don't know. Some people think so. But, you know, if you've seen the Pure Michigan campaign that's going on, a lot of people really like those commercials, and it certainly has been effective. It's attracted an awful lot of people to Michigan. So you can accomplish things with smoke and mirrors sometimes too. All right, the third major theme that's emerged from these previous conversations is this one. For heaven's sakes, give us an effective, efficient, and accountable government in this state. Something that's been sadly lacking for some time. How might we accomplish that? Well, one thing we can do is focus on accountability and bipartisanship. These ideas have already been mentioned here in the room. There's just plain too much bickering in Lansing. Unfortunately, what this strategy amounts to is telling people who do not presently feel very accountable to be accountable, and people who are not behaving in a bipartisan way to behave in a bipartisan way. We may not get very far with this. That's part of the thinking behind the focus on the campaign of 2010. There's going to be an opportunity to get a lot of new folks in Lansing, and maybe we can attract those who are more willing to be accountable and more willing to be bipartisan if we can emphasize the need for accountability and bipartisanship. All right, a second strategy that's been proposed here is to create more clear taxing and spending priorities for the state. We are not actually, have I lost my mic? Am I shouting? Sounds like it. Sounds like it cut out, no? We're actually not a high tax state, but we are a highly confusing tax state, particularly in the business sector. We had a tax for many years called the Michigan Single Business Tax. We killed that a couple of years ago, replaced it with a new one, the Michigan Business Tax. From a business person's point of view, and they tell us this in the groups that we hold all the time, this is jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. The new tax is no better than the old one, and in many ways, from the point of view of many business people, it's actually worse. It's less predictable, and they hate that. They hate unpredictable taxes. They're not so much concerned about a high tax burden as about an unpredictable tax burden. And unfortunately, the Michigan business tax creates an unpredictable tax burden. So that's part of the problem. Of course, the other side of the taxing coin is spending. What do we spend our money on? The big ticket item in this state is corrections. It's our prison system. We imprison an awful lot of people, and we spend an awful lot of money doing it, much more than we spend on education. Just the other day heard that the cost of incarcerating someone at age 18 for the rest of his or her life, you know, lock them up and throw away the key, from age 18, that costs you and me $1 million just to house and feed them. That's what it costs, present value, to incarcerate someone for life. That doesn't even count what it costs us in the legal expenses that we will incur because, of course, they're going to appeal their sentence and all that sort of thing. So incarceration is an expensive way to go, and we do an awful lot of it in Michigan. Should we be doing that much? As one person in one of the groups way back when said, we need to figure out who we're afraid of in this state and who we're just mad at. And lock up the people we're afraid of and not lock up the ones we're mad at. Maybe that's one way to think about it. But in any case, we spend more on corrections than we do on education, and many people have said that those priorities are backwards. Finally, another strategy that's been proposed here we're calling government collaboration and service sharing. Two words describe the state of Michigan. Can't think what they are. Home rule. Home rule. This is a home rule state. In fact, it's one of the home rule states in spades. That means we have lots of small local units of government in Michigan. 83 counties, close to 2,000 municipalities, counting cities, villages, and townships. Over, I believe, more than 500 school districts, which behave in many ways like small local units of government because they have taxing authority. This creates a system of fragmentation and lack of cooperation and service sharing across these lines. There are places you can go in this state. There's one just south of Lansing, where you can drive down a country road that happens to be the border between one township and another, and you can see at an intersection a fire station on one side and a fire station on the other. The fire station on the south side belongs to one township, and the fire station on the north side belongs to the adjoining township. And they are literally across the street. The firemen could play catch with each other across that road. Does this make sense? Probably not. But it comes with the territory when we have a township-based system of local government, as we do, which was set up historically by the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 that parceled all this land here in the territory of Michigan into nice, neat 1 square mile grid, and so forth. It's all a legacy of our history, but it's there and it has an impact today. So many people have said, perhaps we should revisit the way our government is structured and think about ways that we can combine, condense, and try to get collaboration going and service sharing across these lines so that we can save money and create more efficiencies. That's the sense of that strategy. All right, let's once through very quickly over 3 main overarching goals supported by 9 separate strategies that have been that have come out of the discussions that we've had so far. Now we get to the part where I need your help. I'm going to show you the list again. Here they are, in order, that we just talked about. Grouped by the 3 main themes that we just talked about. You see the 2 that have to do with talent and the workforce at the top, talented and globally competitive workforce. You see the 4 that have to do with economic development and diversification there in the middle. And you see the 3 that have to do with effective, efficient, and accountable government at the end of the list. And what I'm asking you to do now is to vote, again, picking one of these strategies that you regard as the one that is most urgent for us to pursue. A single strategy you think is most urgent for us to pursue. I know it's a difficult task for several reasons. One is these things are interrelated. We understand that. It's very hard to tease these apart entirely. It's very hard to talk about one of these without talking about all the rest, really, because they do fit together. We understand, but we're still asking you to make a distinction, if you would, please. Also, it's difficult because most urgent means different things to different people. From some people's point of view, it means the most important single thing we can do. From other people's point of view, it means the thing we could do first that would give us a win, so that then we could move on to something else that would be maybe a little more difficult to do, and build on the momentum that we created by doing something right to begin with, and so on. And there may be other interpretations of most urgent strategy too. But in any case, we're not trying to define this for you. We want you to think about it and give us your response. What we're going to do is, whatever strategy gets picked by the most folks, we'll discuss that for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then I'll show you the list again. We'll come back to the list and I'll ask you to vote again. And we'll discuss whatever gets chosen that time for about 10 or 15 minutes. Then I'll show you the list a 3rd time and we'll discuss whatever gets chosen that time for a few minutes as well. So that's the heart of our conversation here this evening. We're asking you to help us set priorities, to help us set a strategy when we sit down to talk with these people who aspire to be our elected officials in 2010. We'd love to be able to say, here's the list, you know, do all of these, and then when you're done, come back and see us and we'll give you another list. Here are your chores. That won't work. We need to focus on something, not everything. So we need a hat. I mean, we need a peg to hang our hat on, as it were. We need a tune we can whistle when we talk to these legislators and aspiring legislators and aspiring state executives in the coming election cycle. Coming. It's actually already underway, isn't it? How many of you have voted while I've been rattling on? I've got 20, 21, 22. I think we've got the full complement of 24 clickers in play, so I'll wait till we've got 24. I see 23. Has everybody voted? If you press your button again, you'll be sure you voted. I've got 23 responses, and there we go, 24. All right, let's see what we have. Well, that's not hard. We have 42% who are voting for economic development and diversification, as opposed to the next highest one, which is accountability and bipartisan leadership at 25%. You can probably see the columns there, but not the labels at the bottom. And then to the right of the blue column, the one in white is 17% for clear taxing and spending priorities. And the others get just a smattering of votes. So let me write that down, economic development. And now I am at your service to take notes. I will entertain comments from the floor. Do we have the mics? We have some of our helpers here from the center have some handheld mics that they can let you use to give us your ideas. What action steps should Michigan take to create more economic development and diversification? That's our question for you. We know we need that. The question is, how do we get it? Any ideas? We're on an idea collecting mission this evening. Sir?
Someone has to be first.
You bet.
Common sense regulations, regulations that will enhance and convince people to move forward and try things versus regulations that are there to hinder and put roadblocks.
You're speaking of state level regulations
Yes.
at departments such as?
Labor, all departments, really, environment, everybody. There are so many roadblocks that are put in right now for people who are trying to develop anything, new manufacturing, new products, new whatever, new processes. And that needs to be revisited to what makes sense, what protects Michigan, and what creates and enhances the economic drive.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
Community gardens.
In the back, someone?
I was thinking community gardens.
Create them, stimulate them, support them. What's your action step?
Support them.
Support community gardens. Not sure how much economic development that's going to create or economic activity, but you have a notion that it will create some?
I do.
Okay.
I think it will bring diversity down. It will immerse diversity within communities and neighborhoods and sharing of the growth in the gardens.
Okay, does good things for the neighborhoods. Okay, I can buy a hat for sure, but again, here, sir. Thank you.
I'm a believer in small businesses. I think that the future of Michigan, if it's going to grow economically, is in new and developing small businesses. If you look around the Grand Rapids area, you see a lot of businesses that were very small and they became very big. They've done a lot for the community in terms of jobs, but also the people who own them are around, and we see the results in philanthropy, which increases the quality of life in the community. And it's repeated a number of times. So I am not in favor of having an automotive plant, a Japanese company coming in and getting jobs. They may make a few jobs, but what does it cost you to get those jobs? It costs you an enormous amount of money. I'm not sure you come out ahead when you talk about what the tax breaks you have to give to get the people to come in. So I think you have to create a spirit of entrepreneurship and get people here, attract people who are creative, develop creative new ideas as we see in Silicon Valley, for example. You see it around Boston. There's a lot of creative areas. We have a lot of creative people here, young people, young creative people. We need to nurture that development. That's where I see the future of Michigan growing, is in small businesses that will grow and they hire people and they have good jobs, and they're lasting jobs for the most part.
All right, good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I think Michigan needs to work with the federal government and create a master plan to establish rail as a primary transportation method. And Detroit, going back to the 1940s when the FDR had the arsenal of democracy, within a matter of months he was able to convert the automobile manufacturers into bombers and tanks production. We can do the same thing with the abandoned factories in Michigan to make rail. And the federal government could also be behind us to have high-speed rail across the state, across the U.S. That would bring back a lot of manufacturing plants. It would bring back a lot of high-tech jobs. And I just think we should really focus on a master plan or something like that.
Yes, it's been pointed out that because of Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes to our east, Erie and Huron particularly, Erie in particular, you have to kind of be going to Michigan to get to Michigan, right? You can't exactly go through Michigan on your way from one part of the country to another. You can't just jump across those lakes. You've got to drive up into Michigan. Rail might be a way of increasing traffic into and out of Michigan, especially if you connect with Chicago, for example.
Yeah, but it can go from Washington, D.C. to L.A.
Sure.
It's just not rail for Michigan, it's across the country.
Sure.
You know, we have the highways installed in the 50s. We already own the right-of-ways. We could use that, the right-of-ways there to establish rail along the highways.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Just I thought that maybe a small consortium between the educators, such as the universities, whichever that may be, whichever university, say Michigan, Michigan State, Grand Valley, and looking at the economic departments, combining with specific people from the business world to basically look at what is coming down the pike for the future and what we have available as far as manufacturing facilities. And actually look at I will use the word master plan, to sort of develop where we can go with what assets we have and where our future can lead us. And again, that goes back to what I selected as far as leadership from the state. I kind of look at Detroit, and I have sort of a good feeling that Dave Bing was made the mayor. Bing is a businessman. He's been very successful. So he has a track record. I think he will use that track record to help Detroit if he gets the cooperation of different groups. So you look at it and say, we have a lot of universities with brilliant people. We have good business people. Let's put them together and try to make a master plan and get this state moving.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Back here.
One of the things I think we can do immediately to capitalize on the assets that we have that also look toward the future is in the medical field. We have tremendous investment now in our facilities, our physical facilities, and we're beginning to take steps to tie together in some kind of a system, a modern system for developing both the healthcare and the scientific investigation of better health and curing certain types of diseases, which are very costly for everybody to our society. We are located with all these great facilities with these very generous individuals who have made millions of dollars of investment. And yet we don't have any great improvement yet in the way our system works. And we could be a Mayo Clinic in here in Michigan, or in the East Coast and the West Coast. They have these kind of systems that are based on the internet. Let's take advantage of the digital age, move it into medicine in Grand Rapids, which takes time, it's going to take a lot of money. And what we can do is appeal to those people who have made big investments and tell them, how can we get together and have a fund and a group of people who will study what we have in our communities, what we have still to do in our community to get ourselves a whole new industry. A whole new industry is here if we're ready to take the action leadership steps. And it won't happen overnight, but it will be another automobile industry for Michigan in Grand Rapids.
Okay, good, thank you. Other ideas, other comments? Back here.
To capitalize on what both the gentlemen in front of me just said, I believe that there already is an example of everything that's been stated, Grand Rapids. There's a reason that Grand Rapids has been looked at by cities as large as Chicago for being a leader in sustainability, innovation, and energy. is because of its extremely strong partnership with local business leaders, the university, and the generous donors that run the west side of the state. I think the rest of the state needs to catch up and realize what's happening in Grand Rapids in those terms. And I believe if the government can cooperate and direct that the rest of the state into this into the stage that Grand Rapids is in, and it's still developing. It's one of the top cities in the Midwest already, and it's a young city. I just feel like the government and the rest of the state needs to step in and realize this and take suit.
Okay? Model the rest of the state on Grand Rapids. Could do worse. Other comments? All right, well then let's go back to the list and review it and vote again. Here's our list again. Let's pick another topic for discussion. What would you regard as the most urgent strategy, excepting number 3, economic development and diversification? Take that off the list this time. What else would you like to discuss as an urgent strategy?
Can you put up that idea so we can remember what those 3 important principles were?
I can't get into
that list.
I can't get into the slide here, but the first 2 there that you see, pre-K through 16 education and lifelong learning, those have to do with creating a talented and globally effective workforce. Okay. The next 4, number 3, 4, 5, and 6, have to do with creating a vibrant economy and great quality of life. Those are the economic development themes, strategies. And the last 3 have to do with creating effective, efficient, and accountable government. Those are the 3 themes. Talented workforce, vibrant economy, and effective, efficient, and accountable government. Well, we have 21 responses. A couple more to go. Everybody voted? Looks like maybe you have. Let's see what you've chosen this time. We have a tie. Needs to be broken. 32% are saying accountability and bipartisan leadership, and 32% are saying clear taxing and spending priorities. If you did not vote for one of those 2, you get to help us break the tie. So if you didn't vote for either of those 2, how many would prefer to talk about clear taxing and spending priorities? Those of you who didn't vote for one or the other of these 2. Let's see, 1, 2. How many would prefer to talk about, I'm blanking. Clear, no. Well, I got them backwards, didn't I? Yeah, I'm sorry. We just voted for this one, clear taxing and spending priorities, right? 2 of you voted for that. Let's back up to number 7 then, accountability and bipartisan leadership. How many would prefer to vote to discuss that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it looks like that breaks the tie for us. So we'll discuss accountability and bipartisan leadership. Okay, this is a tough one, I got to tell you, to discuss, because it's essentially a counsel of perfection. You know, it's saying do good and avoid evil. But tell me, what are you thinking? Yes, sir.
I'm old enough to remember when there was such a thing in our national politics. I don't know about the Michigan politics, but I suspect there was. I can remember the days of Bill Milliken, and I think that was an era of accountability and bipartisan leadership. We had a lot of interesting legislation that was passed by a great majority at that time. But I can remember when in Washington, the Congress would debate issues, but they were all friends. And the story that I remember, which epitomizes this, is that there was a good friendship between Everett Dirksen, who was the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, and L.B. J. Johnson when he was in the White House. And the story is in Johnson's biography is that Dirksen went to see Johnson. He used to go on a regular basis at the White House, and Johnson said, he says, you know, you said some horrible things about me today on the Senate floor. And Dirksen said, yeah, I know, Lyndon, but they were all true. That was the kind of thing that went on, and there was no personal attacks. Now, it was not something that you can say, okay, we got to do that. It was a culture of leadership and responsibility. We had that through the Second World War, and we had that in the 50s and in the 60s. I mean, there's all kinds of things that went on in Congressmen, but nobody attacked people personally as they have now. And I think it probably started with Richard Nixon, and the Republicans were angry about that. And so it goes back and forth. But I think when Jerry Ford was in the White House, he would have been the kind of person who would lead bipartisan. And he had the right attitude, I think, about the country. So I don't know. It's got to be a culture that develops. And I think there's a little bit of layman goes along for both the parties. But I also think that it's got to start someplace, and it's got to start either with the philosophers, or it's got to start with the culture that develops, so that we realize that we're not trying just to stay in power. We have a culture that says we have to look to the long-term solution and what's good for the state and what's good for the country, rather than what's good for me and whether I can stay in office or whether we really need some leadership. I think frankly their leadership is clearly lacking, especially I would say in the Republican Party at this point. But that's where I see the problems are. There's no clear leadership, and where parties are trying to get together. And I think we have the same thing in the state. It's probably true throughout the whole country. I don't know. I think maybe what you have to do is start in the universities and teach people about ethics and culture, and that pervades the political parties as well as all kinds of other things. But we got to talk about somehow or another. You have to have some cultural leadership about changing the way we do things and why that's important.
Okay, good.
It's not a solution. That's
over here.
I think the only people we have to blame, it's really easy to blame Lansing. But we have a state that votes for legislators. We have a very ideological state, very split, right and left. There's very few really in the middle. And I think the only ones we have to blame for Lansing are ourselves. We're a bunch of ideologues who vote for ideologues, and we want our people representing our views, and it's either my way or the highway. And it's the electorate that is putting up with those in Lansing. We have the ability every 2 years to fire the entire House of Representatives in Lansing. We don't do that. We fire them when their terms are expired. And we leave them there because they're doing what we want. We all complain every year, Lansing is broken. But yet, as an electorate, we do nothing about it. And until the electorate does something, Lansing is just going to, for better or for worse, reflect what we are doing as electors. And until we change that, and I guess society within Michigan and within the country as a whole changes and realizes we need to work for each other, work with each other, the legislatures are just going to keep doing what they're doing. So the problem, I don't think, is Lansing, it's us.
All right. Coming back here. No?
Accountability, I've heard of some leadership. It's kind of a question and a comment. When the campaigns get in full gear for 2010, I'm getting the sense that your work here will become a template where, if no one else, at least a newspaper, can keep it on an edition and can try to draw out of the candidates what their value choices are in comparison to, I don't emerging plan here. It's that represents the electorate's thinking. If that's done, I would only offer that the other half of the legislators that are not going to be up for re-election in 2010, that somebody try to do some accounting and put them up against your plan too, or our plan, so that readers can form an impression of whether people are going to, what people's word is going to be and whether they're going to follow through on it.
All right, interesting idea. Other comments?
Yeah. I'd just like to comment on the term limitations. I think that for a representative to be in 4 years, it's really not enough. I think you get into elected office, you're a rookie, and it takes time just to learn the ins and outs of the business. You always say it may take 2 years to learn that, and then you've got another 2 years to sort of put your bills together and so forth. So I'm kind of looking at it and say maybe 12 years and out if you need to have term limitation. But really, to me, it's if the person isn't doing their job, you vote them out. So they can stay in for as long as they do the job. And it's up to us to make that determination whether they're performing correctly or not. And so that's my comment.
All right, good, thank you, yeah. Yeah, the issue of term limits comes up in just about every group that we do.
Actually, I think an opportunity to make some changes in our governance in our state comes about next year. I think in 2010, we have a mandatory item that gets on the ballot wherein the electorate can ask for another another review of our state constitution. There's some important issues in our structure that I think have to be re-examined. There's going to be an opportunity for new leadership to be found, maybe through a we ought to have a better way of our governor, whoever it may be, has a better platform to be a leader. I don't know what goes on in Lansing. I don't have any idea what Granholm stands for, up or down, or is she on the job or isn't she on the job? It's very hard to get a measure of the governance that we have in our state, in Lansing. And I think this constitutional convention idea, it can be a bad thing too. You can have changes that are not good, but it gives the electorate a chance to take a look through the people who are selected to look at the constitution of the state and see where it can be improved. And I certainly hope that they have a campaign to get the electorate on the ball in the next year when they do have a chance to make that vote.
Okay, so you would support a constitutional convention?
I support it because I think there's some important changes that should be considered. And we may end up by having the same constitution, you know. But there may be one or two things that can be done to improve the structure of our governance.
All right, good, thank you. Other comments or suggestions? Have we talked you out this evening? Another comment? Yeah, go ahead.
When the term accountability comes to mind as a student, from my point of view, and in terms of the government, I look at it in the way of how are you setting an example for your future leaders. And right now, I'm barely making ends meet getting through school. Not only am I not receiving help from the government, I'm getting it taken away, the help I've already earned. And when I finish school, there are no jobs. Government continues to set the wrong example in my eyes and gives me no reason to stay in the state. When I think of the term accountability, in my eyes, I look at it as setting an example for future leaders.
All right. Any other comments? No? All right. Let me show you the list again. Need to have you vote one more time. Oh, well, I should have done that a moment ago, but I didn't. Here we go, back to the list. Changing the subject this time. Here you see the list again of the 9 strategies that we've been discussing, but this time we're going to change the focus. We're not going to ask you about problems that need to be solved and the strategy you think will help to solve them. Rather, we're asking you this time, what's working? What's not a problem? Which one of these strategies is successful in your community? So we're looking for good news. We're looking for successes that we can perhaps replicate from one community to another around the state. Looking for good ideas that we can disseminate. Take a look through here. If your sense is that education works real well here, you would probably pick one of the first 2. If your sense is that the business community is vibrant and thriving here, you might pick one of the next 4. If your sense is that government works well here, you might pick one of the last 3. Whatever you think of as your community, let's see what you come up with. Well, we have 18, 19, 20, here they come, in a rush. 20 responses, 21, a couple more. What's that? A couple have left, so 21 is probably about it, Mandy? It may not make any difference, let's see. It's not going to make any difference. 38% of you have selected quality of place, and obviously nothing else comes anywhere near that. And that doesn't surprise me. That's the one that's most often chosen. I've done these conversations all around the state. I've been in the UP, I've been in Marquette, I've been in Elk Rapids, way up north, I've been in Monroe, way down in the southeast corner of the state. I've been in a number of locations over here on the west side of the state, in the Lansing area and the Saginaw area, and everybody likes their communities in Michigan. Isn't that interesting? Everybody likes to talk about quality of place. So tell me, what's so great about this place? What do you like about this place? What's the good news about this community? What are some examples of how and why it's succeeding? Actually, I think we've already heard a few of these, haven't we? Small business and the long-term investment that local small business people have made in the community, and their willingness to give back and so forth. Philanthropy is strong. So you're speaking of economic diversification. It's going on here. Actually, that dates back to a recommendation that came out of a think tank, what, some 10 years ago or something like that?
Yeah, bankers, the universities got together, and the business community developers.
And lots of changes were made in Grand Rapids, and it's starting to pay off. All right, good. Economic diversification. Over here.
Art Prize. Words and brought everybody to this town and brought everybody together for 3 weeks. Made national news. It was done by one person, entrepreneur in this, we don't know who it was. But that is something that has worked, and it has worked extremely well for Grand Rapids.
Okay, good, yeah. What else would you like to mention? Yes, sir.
I think Art Prize is a good example of the community, but I think it was more than one. I think it was a group of local young people, very entrepreneurial, who were able to pull it off and precisely. But I go back to my time in Grand Rapids, back in 1970, I think. when the city really was not a very attractive place. And downtown was probably as close to the other cities around the country were. I remember participating in a master plan for the city. I don't know whether, I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but there was a piece of property across the river where Bob Sullivan wanted to put up a drug store. He had a place over there, but the city owned it, and they were about ready to sell it to him, which is what the way of things around here. And so people, a lot of people said, wait a minute, we ought to talk about what to do about it, what's the best use. And as they started to talk about it, they said, appointed a committee, and the committee said, we can't talk about this piece in the vacuum. We have to look at what's across the river. And before they were done, they had the entire downtown area, and they developed a master plan. And that's nothing new, because a lot of people develop master plans, but the city government hired a planner and put it in place. And that, to me, was the single most significant thing that happened to create the kind of atmosphere that we have here in Grand Rapids. And I know that after being at hearings before the zoning board of appeals, that they stick to that. They're very tough on any variances. And that also is very significant in the development of the community. But it makes possible things like Art Prize and the arena development and the kind of money that came in to the private money that came in to develop this. You had people like Grand Action Committee, who was for it, and it's a private version, and brought in public as well as private money to have convention center and new public museum, Ford Museum, all of those kind of things developed and made this place a very, very interesting place. And I think the city government was very instrumental. And still today, I think we have wonderful leadership in our city government, especially the mayor. I think he's changed, and he's got a very upbeat. I mean, maybe a lot of people disagree with him, but I think that's changed. I think the attitude, his attitude, and what he's done for the city, his programs really have changed things and facilitated the things like Art Prize and new development of all these old buildings that already have new buildings. All this sort of thing makes it a really interesting place. So I think that's a very big positive.
All right.
Now, in addition to that, we've got lots of recreational things around here.
Yeah.
And from my travels around the country, this is probably one of the best places for recreation and being able to work and have a very good job.
Okay. What else? What else would you like to mention? Anyone? Back here?
This may have been touched on, but I think our community has been very successful in rebuilding decaying old factories, turning them into downtown places to live. Also, the Hill District, of course, that was done quite some years ago, but now they're moving down Division and other areas over across the tracks in the Latino areas and so forth. And of course, moving Grand Valley and this building we're sitting in down here to the river and downtown has been a fantastic spur to the whole development downtown. And eventually, you're going to see places where you can go in and buy groceries, I suppose, again. Because we used to have groceries downtown, and they moved out of town. And the whole development downtown is extremely exciting, and that can be reproduced in other communities. And the techniques that have been used and the leadership that has been shown, that can be replicated. And I think it would be a tremendous thing. And I think it's a gift we can give some other people.
All right, good. Thank you. What else? Highlights of being here in Grand Rapids. Some of the things that you would point to with pride about the Grand Rapids community, or the West Michigan community, however you look at it, or your home community if this isn't it. Yeah, Austin.
I think I would say continuing education opportunities, not only our center, but the number of free public programs and community events. I mean, between summertime and into fall, you could virtually be busy every night doing something else in the community. So it's a big strength, I think.
Good thing to mention. I sense that you're kind of winding down here, running out of steam a little bit. It's getting on in the evening, isn't it? We've been going over this for a while now. Well, let's wrap things up. I think maybe you've spoken your piece this evening. Let me call your attention to that sign-in sheet, if I could, please, that I hope everybody got a chance to pick up. If not, maybe we can circulate around to make sure everybody gets a copy of that before we wrap things up here this evening. If you had a chance to, if you didn't have a chance to fill out that sign-in sheet, now's the time to do it, if you would, please. You can go ahead and look down that list, past that line where it says, please stop here and wait for instructions, because I'm going to describe a couple of things that you can do if you'd like to continue to be involved in this campaign. One is that you can do what the nice folks here at the Hauenstein Center have done. Organize a group discussion of your own. If you are a member of some church group perhaps, or a youth group you know of, or a neighborhood association, or anything of that nature, and you'd like to get these folks together and have a community conversation like this, please so indicate on the sheet and we'll be in touch with you. All we need is your phone number and someone will get in touch with you to help you set that up. If you would, a very simple thing you can do, if you would like to do this, is to sign up for our free e-newsletter. All we need for that is your email address, and that comes out weekly or so. Another thing you can do is refer to our website, www.thecenterformichigan.net. You have that on your blue lighthouse book there. And you will find on that what we call a citizens toolkit, which is a list of contact information for all of those elected officials. How do you get hold of your state representative or your state senator or all kinds of other folks in Lansing? And finally, you have a bit of a policy orientation towards these questions. You're interested in how policy is determined, how it's made, you may want to join one of our action groups. We've already held a number of these. You can see some old news here on this slide. It talks about early spring 2009. Obviously that's gone. But I think we are still holding a few of these action groups into the fall and winter. These are organized around these three themes that we've been talking about: talent and education, economy and quality of life, and accountable government. So if you have a particular interest in policy around one of those issues, you can indicate so on that sign-in sheet, and we will pass along to you the information about the specifics, the particulars of the action group that has to do with the subject that you're interested in, assuming that any more of these are being scheduled. I'm not sure what the schedule is for the rest of the year, so I can't be entirely certain whether we're actually still holding action groups in all three of these subject matter areas. But if you're interested, let us know. Perhaps if a number of people are interested, they'll schedule a few more of these than they had planned to. And finally, of course, we have this ongoing dialogue in our forums at the centerformichigan.net, the website for the Center for Michigan. You can participate in that way as well. One last thought to leave you with. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has, said the great anthropologist Margaret Mead. And so I want to thank you all for being a small group of concerned, committed citizens here this evening. This is the way that change gets made, and we deeply appreciate your willingness to come down, share your thoughts, share your visions, share your ideas, and help us make the kinds of changes that I think we all want to continue to have this be the wonderful state that we all love here in Michigan. Thank you all very much.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Grand Valley State University. Visit us at gvsu.edu.